Well, good evening, everyone. Lovely to be back at JESS Arabian Ranches. Speaking about a subject that has been an elusive subject that mankind has been fascinated with since the history of humankind, the pursuit of happiness. In my day job, I've been lucky enough to spend a lot of time walking across some extreme places of our world. It took me about 50 days to walk to the North Pole from Canada, with a month beforehand training, and about 47 days to walk to the South Pole. Just on the next slide, please. There we go. The same thing across, again, it's frozen Antarctic landscape. And again, the length of Greenland, which took us 67 days to cross the length of Greenland. More recently, across the Rub al Khali, the empty quarter, which is the book I just wrote, Footsteps of Thessager, which you might see outside. And, of course, also before that was summiting the world's highest mountain, Mount Everest. Now, in all these places, I was devoid of all material possessions, all creature comforts, in usually the most inhospitable terrain, usually in agony from the pain of cold or the pain of fatigue or the pain of sleep deprivation. And the one thing that I had on these trips was something we don't have much in our day-to-day lives, and that's called time. Time to think. And because there's not much else to do on these polar trips, you can look at ice or you can look at sky. I played an iPod for about an hour a day, and it was an iPod shuffle. Phil Collins kept coming up singing Take Me Home. I said, shut up, Phil, there's enough of that. So you have time to think, and I thought a lot about this subject, happiness. You're thinking about so many things on these trips. And what I found was the thing I value most was my health, and the thing I missed most was family and friends. And it wasn't the 75-inch LED television. It wasn't a new tablet computer that cooks a cup of tea with your word of command. And it wasn't other flash gadgets, which just going back to what you said, it wasn't the gadgets that made me happy. These are the real things that I thought, health, family, and friendships, which most surveys on happiness state are the key ingredients of happiness, relationships. So having thought of these things and I've journaled them and I put them in my own sort of thoughts. One little quote from Everest. This is the son of Edmund Hillary, by the way, Peter Hillary. When you succumb yourself to such extreme things, you really value the true things in life. But what I want to do tonight is just cover on three things. We've titled this 3 Steps to Happiness. And I hate lists because, for every 3, there's probably 30. There's a load of things you could talk, but I just want to concentrate on 3 in the 15 minutes that I have. And the first one is something called values. Values are the things that we all have. There's 100 people in this room tonight. And just what Brandy said, these happiness index of governments, they all have different attributes, different criteria. And the same with all of us. What makes you happy may be completely different to what makes you happy and whatever makes you happy. We all have our own DNA, our own attributes, the things that motivate us, the things that energize us, the things that make us happy, that make us sad, that drive us and make us inspired. And I've done a lot of work on this subject called happiness. And I was going to speak about values tonight, and then I came across the Dalai Lama on his latest status update this morning. And he spoke about values this morning in his status update. Now, I'll just read that. He talks about money, and I'm not going to speak about that because I do believe money, and the statistics show that up to a certain extent, money can bring happiness. But I fully agree with him about material possessions don't. But this thing about inner values, what is it? And when I look at myself, the work I've done on value work, and there's loads of management tools out there you can do surveys and statistics and tests that gives your own values. But one of the things to ask yourself, a little quick test, is when in your own lives were you really driven? Just think about that time. It could be last week, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when were you most motivated? When were you most happy? When were you most energized? And if you look behind the story, you might get a little idea of what sort of values are internal to yourself. To give you my example on how this sort of works, the things that drive me, and I've looked at this, done a lot of work on it. Health and fitness, I'm driven by it. Absolutely driven. When I'm healthy and fit, I'm happy. And when I'm injured, I'm a misery, complete, utter misery. Achievement, as you might gather, I'm driven by achievement, by adventure, by beauty, by freedom, and by people. These are the things that drive me. Now, some of you may share some of these values. Some of you share the achievement value, freedom value, people value, but each of those values have got different subsectors. So for me, for health and fitness, this is what it is to me. I love competing. I've got respect for this one body that I have. I love endorphins, these things that rage around your body when you're doing exercise, and I want to live long and healthy. I've got this goal in life of living to 120. I've only got 90 years to go, but it's a long way since. But so we've all got these values, and I think when you tap into them, if you're not living your life in accordance to your values, you aren't going to be the happiest you can possibly be. If you are, chances are you will be. Okay? There's one little quote by Howard Thurman. Don't ask yourself what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive and go and do that. So that was values. I also want to speak about something called goal setting. We all know about it. This thing called goals. I'm a goal-driven person, as you might gather. I set these rather extreme goals and seem to achieve them with a few exceptions. But what is it about goal setting that does to us? Well, I think that, everyone in our cluttered world and our mental fatigue-driven world, we're all looking for some sort of purpose and some goals in our life. And I've worked with people who've been out of jobs, who've had relationship breakdowns, who are lost. But once you get people into setting goals, something changes. Something changes, with one slight provision, which I'll come to at the end. But something changes, it gets you into action, and it gives you a purpose in life. Gets you moving, gets you into action. And people often ask, what's the difference between purpose or mission and goals? Well, there's one little quote that I like. The goals to me are something that's in the foreseeable future, in the next year and a half. The mission, the purpose is a longer term thing. The mission purpose is usually out of reach. It's that huge thing out in the future. But the goals are tangible things that you can achieve in the next foreseeable 1 to 2 years. And that's what I do. And again, one little golden tip I say, particularly for the students here, who is write the things down. When you write your goals down, they actually have a habit of coming true. Don't leave them into just area, I think I'm going to do this. Turn the dreams into concrete goals, and they come true. And I spend a whole week at the beginning of each year writing down my goals, brainstorming with a coach, have a mid-year review. I take this subject very seriously indeed. And it does make you happier because you've got a purpose in your life. With one proviso, which is the third thing I want to speak about tonight, which is past, present, and future. Now, studies have shown, they've done some studies, psychologists and scientists, on who are the happiest people. People who look back to the past, people who live in the present, people in the future. And what they've found is people who live in the past are the least happy of all peoples. The least happy. They can't change it. They reflect back on the good times, all these favorable memories, but the past is water under the bridge. Future-looking people can be happy, usually are happy. However, so often they're so busy chasing their goals and going for the future that they forget to live in the present, to enjoy the simple things of living in the present. And the statistics show that present-thinking people are the most happiest of all. Now, if you want a little example of this, in the Christian world, we have two celebrations at the end of each year, within a week of each other. One is Christmas Day, and one is New Year's Eve. And if you want to look at the difference, Christmas Day is a day when everyone is in the present, correct? We just savor that moment, and most people love it. With your family or friends, you're not looking at clocks, you're just savoring that moment of being together, playing games, good food, drink, whatever, and just binding those relationships together. You look at the celebration the week later, the New Year's Eve. Are people in the present? Everybody's looking at their clocks. Everybody's looking at their watch. There's this sort of tension that I can't quite fathom, and frankly, I can't stand the night. I think it's just a complete waste of time, but I love Christmas Day. And as this guy, I love this guy's quotes because he had it all, 6th century before modern era. He puts it up pretty aptly. If you're depressed, live in the past. If you're anxious, live in the future. If you're at peace, you're living in the present. So whilst I am a goal setter, and I'll be honest with you, it is my greatest challenge, and it is only going back to my trip sometimes when I'm crossing the desert or the poles or whatever, or going climbing in the mountains of Oman or the Emirates, that I actually do sometimes get in the present and really savor it and be grateful for what we have. So that's just 3 little things that I believe can help our happiness. And a final thought, which this film's just won a few Oscars with Daniel Day-Lewis, but people are just as happy as they make up their minds to be. I think the final thing I want to say is that we create our own lives. We create our own lives. And you can blame your upbringing, your parents' divorce, your finances, your education, your schooling, your everything. You can blame it on everything that where you are now. But at the end of the day, the buck stops with you. And if things aren't right, if things are not going right and you're not happy, no one's going to solve it apart from yourself. And it's up to you to get into action and change it. So if relationships is, for you, in your values, a key thing for creating happiness, and you find you haven't got many friends or you're not being invited, really you've got to do something about it. Whatever that takes, go out and search it, because we create our own lives. And I'm creating my own life now. As I said, and I've not speaking to you as someone who's all happy and go lucky the whole time. I've had my depths of despair as much as anyone else. But using these tools of getting into action, getting in touch with your values and setting goals, and that sort of final sort of quote that is up to me to sort it out, I don't last there long. I usually pick myself up above it and get back into action and enjoying the life. So there's my take on happiness. Go and be happy. Thank you.